My name is Ethan Mitchell, 22 years old, and today I'm graduating summa cum laude from Stanford University. After juggling 3 jobs to stay debt-free, this moment means everything. My parents promised they'd be here, sitting front row. Then came the text. Too tired to make the drive. Sorry. I swallowed my disappointment, rehearsing the valedictorian speech I'd written to thank them. Until I saw their Instagram post. Family Day at Madison Spa Retreat. Sometimes life's greatest lessons come when you least expect them. Before I continue my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to celebrate your victories alone. Growing up in the Mitchell household meant understanding an unspoken hierarchy. My sister Madison, 2 years older, somehow always occupied the top spot in my parents' attention economy. It wasn't that they didn't love me, I believe they did in their way, but Madison's needs and achievements consistently overshadowed mine. I remember my 8th grade science fair. I'd spent months developing a solar-powered water filtration system that ended up winning first place at the regional competition. The award ceremony was scheduled for a Thursday evening. My parents, Richard and Karen Mitchell, assured me they wouldn't miss it. Thursday came, and I stood on stage scanning the audience, but their seats remained empty. Later that night, they explained that Madison's dance recital rehearsal had run long. It wasn't the first time, nor would it be the last. When I made the varsity swim team as a freshman, the only freshman to do so that year, my parents missed my first 4 meets because Madison's college applications required family input sessions. When I broke the school record for the 200-meter freestyle, my mom was the team photographer for Madison's volleyball tournament, and my dad was catching up on work. Your sister's at a critical juncture in her life, they explained. College will determine her whole future. I nodded, understanding yet again that my accomplishments existed in a vacuum. I learned to celebrate alone or with friends, coaches, and teachers who did notice. I learned to be my own cheerleader. By junior year of high school, I developed a close relationship with my AP Literature teacher, Professor Lawrence Hayes, who had taught at the local community college before moving to high school education. He recognized something in me, perhaps a hunger for validation that wasn't being satisfied at home. You have a remarkable mind, Ethan, he told me one day after I'd turned in an analysis of Steinbeck that he said was college-level work. But more importantly, you have perseverance. That will take you further than natural talent ever could. Professor Hayes became the mentor I desperately needed. He wrote my college recommendation letters, helped me navigate scholarship applications, and checked in regularly even after I graduated and headed to Stanford. College meant freedom but also financial reality. My parents contributed what they could, but it was clear from the beginning that I'd need to work. While Madison attended NYU with full parental financial support, including an apartment in the East Village, I worked at the campus bookstore between classes, delivered food on weekends, and tutored fellow students in the evenings. I didn't resent the work, it taught me time management and built character, but sometimes, during rare moments of self-pity, I wondered why my path seemed so much harder than my sister's. During sophomore year, I called home after acing a particularly difficult midterm. My mom answered, sounding distracted. That's wonderful, honey, she said, but I could hear her attention was elsewhere. Madison just got an internship interview at Vogue. Your father's helping her prepare right now. Can I call you back later? Later never came. I learned to share my achievements with friends instead, people who actually had the bandwidth to celebrate with me. When I found out I'd been named valedictorian of my graduating class, Professor Hayes was the first person I called. His genuine excitement made my accomplishment feel real. I'm so proud of you, Ethan, he said, his voice cracking slightly. I knew from the beginning you were destined for greatness. I did call my parents afterward. They seemed pleased but distracted. Madison was having relationship problems with her boyfriend, and they were in the middle of helping her navigate that crisis. We'll definitely be at your graduation, my father promised. Wouldn't miss it for the world. I believed him. Despite years of disappointments, I still held on to the hope that this achievement, graduating top of my class from one of the most prestigious universities in the country, would finally be enough to command their full attention. The original graduation speech I wrote reflected that hope. It was filled with gratitude, acknowledging my parents' support and sacrifices. I wrote about family being the foundation of success, and how everything I'd achieved was built on their unwavering belief in me. The words flowed easily because they were the words I desperately wanted to be true. The day before graduation dawned bright and clear, a perfect California morning. I woke up early, too excited to sleep, and began preparing my apartment for my parents' visit. They had initially planned to drive up that afternoon, stay overnight in a hotel near campus, and be fresh for the ceremony the next day. I changed my sheets in case they wanted to rest at my place, cleaned the bathroom, and even bought fresh coffee, the premium kind my dad preferred. I wanted everything to be perfect. This was the moment I'd been working toward for 4 years, and I finally had something big enough to make them proud. At 11:30 a.m. my phone rang. My mother's name flashed on the screen. "Hey, Mom," I answered, smiling. "Are you guys on the road yet?" There was a slight pause before she spoke. "About that, Ethan. Your father and I have been talking, and I don't think we're going to be able to make it tomorrow." The words hit me like a physical blow. I sat down on my freshly made bed. "What do you mean? Is everything okay?" "We're just exhausted, honey. Your father's been working 60-hour weeks, and I've been dealing with the renovation contractors. It's just not a good time for a 4-hour round trip. It's my college graduation, Mom. And we're so proud of you. We really are. But we know you'll understand. You've always been our independent one, so capable of handling things on your own." Independent by necessity, I thought but didn't say. "Madison's been going through a rough patch with this breakup," she continued. "She really needs family support right now. You know how emotional she gets." I closed my eyes, forcing myself to breathe evenly. "So you're staying home from Madison?" No, it's not like that. We're just too tired to drive. We'll celebrate when you come home next week, okay? We'll have a nice dinner, just the 4 of us." After promising to watch the live stream of the ceremony and reassuring me again about how proud they were, my mother hung up. I sat motionless on my bed, staring at the wall. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason Turner, my best friend since freshman year. "Parents arrive yet? Want to grab lunch before the chaos begins?" I texted back. "Change of plans. They're not coming. Free for lunch in 30. Jason didn't ask questions over text, which I appreciated. He knew my family dynamic well enough to understand. We met at our favorite burger place near campus. Jason took one look at my face and ordered us both beers despite the early hour. "Want to talk about it?" he asked after the server left. "Same old story. Too busy, too tired. Madison needs them." I attempted a smile that felt more like a grimace. "At least I'm consistent. Always the afterthought." Jason shook his head. "Man, that's rough. I'm sorry. I wrote this whole speech thanking them for their support. Talking about family values and sacrifice." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "Guess I'll need to revise." "You could always thank the people who actually showed up for you," Jason suggested. "Like Hayes. And your real family, the one you chose." The idea resonated. Throughout the afternoon, I distracted myself by revising sections of my speech, but my heart wasn't fully in it. Part of me still clung to the narrative I'd constructed that my parents' absence was due to legitimate exhaustion, not a continuation of the pattern that had defined my entire life. That evening, alone in my apartment, I rehearsed the slightly revised speech aloud, trying to convince myself it still worked. The words felt empty now, disconnected from my reality. Just before midnight, I made the mistake of checking Instagram. The algorithm, knowing my family connections, pushed my mother's post to the top of my feed. A photo of my parents and Madison, all wearing plush robes, holding champagne flutes at an upscale spa. My mother's caption read, Much needed family relaxation day with that Madison Mitchell at Lux Spa retreat. Nothing more important than being there for each other. Family time priorities self-care. The timestamp showed it had been posted just hours after our phone call. The hashtags felt like deliberate daggers. Priorities, indeed. I scrolled through the comments and saw my mother had responded to someone asking if the whole family was there. Just us and Madison today. Ethan's busy with college stuff. So proud of our independent boy. I shut off my phone and sat in the dark of my apartment. The sadness that had been building all day crystallized into something harder, sharper. I wasn't sad anymore. I was angry. And for perhaps the first time in my life, I didn't immediately suppress that anger or make excuses for them. Sleep evaded me that night. At 3 a.m., I sat at my desk and opened my laptop. The valedictorian speech document glowed on the screen, full of platitudes about family support that now felt like fiction. I created a new document and began typing. This time, I wrote the truth. I awoke after maybe 2 hours of fitful sleep, my laptop still open beside me. The new speech I'd written in the dark hours of early morning waited there, raw and honest in a way I'd never allowed myself to be before. My phone buzzed with a text from Jason. Coming to get you at 9. Wear sunscreen. It's gonna be a scorcher. Another text arrived from Professor Hayes. Your day has arrived, Ethan. So proud of you. See you at the ceremony. Simple words of support that somehow meant everything. I showered and dressed methodically, putting on the new suit I'd bought for the occasion, dark blue, conservative, professional. The kind of suit that said I was ready for whatever came next. As I adjusted my tie in the mirror, I studied my reflection. I looked older somehow, more resolved. The face looking back at me belonged to someone who had finally accepted a truth long denied. When Jason's car honked outside, I grabbed my cap and gown, my revised speech, and headed out. The morning sun was already intense, promising the scorcher Jason had predicted. You look like hell, Jason greeted me, eyeing the dark circles under my eyes. Didn't sleep much, I admitted, buckling my seatbelt. Second thoughts about the speech? I shook my head. No. For once, I think I'm saying exactly what needs to be said. The drive to campus was short but dense with anticipation. Parking was a nightmare. Families had arrived early to secure spots close to the ceremony venue. Everywhere I looked, I saw proud parents helping their graduates with robes, taking photos, carrying flower bouquets. We made our way to the gathering area for graduates. The lawn was already filling with my classmates in their black robes, many accompanied by parents straightening their caps or tassels. The familial intimacy of these scenes created a lump in my throat that I struggled to swallow past. Ethan! A voice called out. Emma Chin, my academic rival turned friend, waved from across the lawn. She was surrounded by what appeared to be multiple generations of her family, all beaming with pride. My parents are getting seats, she explained as I approached. But they wanted me to give you this. She handed me a small gift bag. Inside was a fountain pen in a velvet box with a card that read, To Ethan, congratulations on your remarkable achievement. Your speeches have always inspired us. The Chun family. I'd had dinner at Emma's house several times during our study sessions. Her parents had always treated me like another child, feeding me, asking about my classes, remembering details about my life. The thoughtfulness of their gift nearly undid me. Tell them thank you, I managed, tucking the gift carefully into my pocket. More classmates arrived with their families. Mark Williams introduced me to his parents who had flown in from Maine. Aisha Jackson's grandmother had traveled from Nigeria to see her become the first college graduate in their family. Trevor Simmons' parents had driven 17 hours from Colorado, leaving at 3 a.m. the day before to ensure they wouldn't miss a moment. My dad took unpaid leave, Trevor told me proudly. Said nothing would keep him from being here. I nodded, smiling through the knife twist of those words. As we lined up for the procession, I scanned the gathering crowd one last time, some irrational part of me still hoping to see my parents rushing in, apologetic and bearing flowers. Instead, I saw Professor Hayes taking a seat near the faculty section. He caught my eye and gave me a thumbs up. University staff began organizing us by department, checking names off lists, ensuring tassels were on the correct side. The ceremony coordinator approached me with clipboard in hand. "Ethan Mitchell? Valedictorian?" she confirmed. "You'll be seated on stage with the dignitaries. Follow me, please." As I separated from the main group, Jason called out, "Knock him dead, Mitchell!" Backstage was organized chaos, university officials in full academic regalia, distinguished alumni being briefed on the order of ceremonies, the university president reviewing last-minute changes to the program. Dean Michael Dawson spotted me and came over, hand extended. "Mr. Mitchell, congratulations on your outstanding achievement." "Thank you, sir." "Your speech ready?" he asked, eyeing the folded papers in my hand. I nodded, not trusting myself to elaborate. "Excellent." As I waited in the wings, Professor Hayes appeared beside me, dignified in his academic robes. "Ethan," he said, placing a hand on my shoulder, "I wanted to catch you before things get hectic. I have a favor to ask." "Of course." "My daughter couldn't make it today, but she wanted to see your speech. Would you mind if I recorded on my phone?" The request was simple, but in that moment, it felt significant, someone wanting to preserve my words, considering them worth sharing with someone who couldn't be present. "I'd be honored," I replied. Professor Hayes squeezed my shoulder. "You've earned this moment. Remember that." As we took our places for the procession, I folded and unfolded my speech nervously. The paper was becoming soft at the creases, the words I'd written in that moment of clarity at 3 a.m. now about to be shared with thousands. For a brief moment, doubt crept in. Was I making a mistake? Was I about to burn bridges that could never be rebuilt? Then I remembered the Instagram post. Priorities. My resolve hardened just as the opening notes of Pomp and Circumstance began to play. The graduation ceremony began with a precision that belied the emotional chaos swirling within me. We processed in under the bright June sun, a river of black robes and square caps flowing into the main quad where rows of white chairs awaited. Parents and family members craned their necks and waved, some holding signs or balloons, others calling out names despite the formal atmosphere. I walked in my designated spot near the front, behind the university president and dean, ahead of my classmates. From this vantage point, I could see the sea of faces in the audience, all those proud families who had made attending this ceremony their priority. The front row, where special seating had been reserved for families of those on stage, including the valedictorian, had 2 empty chairs with my name taped to them. A physical manifestation of my parents' absence that felt almost too on the nose, like the universe was underscoring the point. We took our seats on stage, facing the graduates and audience. The university president approached the podium, welcoming everyone to Stanford's commencement ceremony with practiced eloquence. I half listened to his speech about achievement, potential, and the responsibility that comes with education, my mind drifting to the words in my pocket and what would happen when I finally spoke them aloud. The ceremony proceeded methodically, honorary degrees conferred, special recognitions announced, speeches by distinguished alumni. I watched my classmates in their rows, some attentive, others fidgeting or secretly checking phones. 4 years of shared experiences culminating in this single day. From my seat on stage, I spotted Jason in the 3rd row of graduates, giving me an encouraging thumbs up. Emma sat primly several rows behind him, her honor cords draped elegantly around her shoulders. Scattered throughout were faces that had become familiar through classes, study groups, and campus activities, the community that had become my surrogate family. I scanned the audience again, row by row, still harboring that childish hope that my parents had changed their minds, made the drive after all, and were sitting somewhere in the back. But the faces blurred together, none of them familiar in the way I desperately wanted. Professor Hayes caught my eye from his faculty section and held up his phone subtly, reminding me of his promise to record. The simple gesture centered me. At least one person wanted to preserve this moment. The dean approached the podium next. It is now my pleasure to introduce this year's valedictorian, a student whose academic achievements have been truly exceptional. Maintaining a perfect 4.0 GPA while working multiple jobs and contributing significantly to campus life, this graduate exemplifies the values of diligence, perseverance, and intellectual curiosity that Stanford strives to foster. Please welcome to the podium, Ethan Mitchell. Applause rippled through the audience as I rose from my seat, straightened my robe, and walked to the podium. My heart hammered against my ribs as I carefully placed my speech on the wooden surface, smoothing the creases with slightly trembling hands. I looked out at the crowd, at least 1,000 faces looking back expectantly. The microphone amplified my breathing as I took a moment to collect myself. My eyes found Professor Hayes, phone held steady, recording as promised. Beside him, I noticed Dean Dawson had also raised his phone to capture the moment. I cleared my throat. Distinguished faculty, honored guests, fellow graduates, family and friends, I began, following the traditional opening. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. It's an honor to stand before you today at the culmination of our journey at Stanford University. I paused, looking down at my prepared remarks, the ones I'd written in that moment of clarity at 3 a.m. The raw truth I'd never spoken aloud. For a brief, vertiginous moment, I considered reverting to platitudes, to the safe speech I'd originally prepared. Instead, I looked directly into Professor Hayes' phone camera. To everyone who didn't show up, this one's for you. A murmur rippled through the audience. This was not the conventional opening they expected. I continued before I could lose my nerve. I stand before you today as your valedictorian, but that title doesn't tell you who I really am. I'm the kid who worked 3 jobs while maintaining a 4.0 GPA. I'm the student who found quiet corners of the library to nap between shifts because going home to sleep wasn't an option. I'm the person who learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to show up for you don't. The audience had grown pin-drop quiet. My original speech was full of gratitude for family support, a beautiful fiction I've been telling myself for years. But today, I choose truth. The truth is that success doesn't always come from having every advantage. Sometimes it comes from having to fight for every inch of ground on your own. I glanced at the empty seats in the front row, then back to the camera. To those watching online who couldn't be bothered to drive 2 hours to be here in person, who were too tired but somehow found the energy for a spa day with my sister, I want you to know something. I succeeded not because of your support, but despite its absence. Gasps and uncomfortable shifting came from the audience. This was veering far from commencement speech territory. I saw Dean Dawson's eyebrows rise, but he made no move to stop me. But this speech isn't actually about absence. It's about presence. It's about the people who did show up. My voice softened. Professor Hayes, who believed in me when I stopped believing in myself. Jason Turner, who became the brother I needed. Emma Chin, whose fierce intellectual competition pushed me to excel, and whose family fed me Sunday dinners when I was too broke to buy groceries. I looked out at my classmates, many of whom were nodding, some with tears in their eyes. It's about the community we build when traditional structures fail us. The family we choose when the family we're born into doesn't see our worth. My voice grew stronger. To everyone graduating today who had to fight harder, work longer, and overcome more just to reach the same starting line as others, I see you. Your struggle isn't a weakness, it's your superpower. You've already proven you can do the impossible. I turned a page in my speech. Stanford taught us about theoretical physics, comparative literature, and advanced economics. But life taught me that true success isn't measured by a GPA or a fancy job title. It's measured by resilience. By the ability to keep moving forward when every instinct tells you to give up. The audience was with me now, the initial shock giving way to engagement. So today, as we move our tassels from right to left and transition from students to alumni, I challenge each of you to define success on your own terms. To recognize that sometimes the most significant achievements come not from having every advantage, but from overcoming every obstacle. I looked directly into Hayes' camera again. And to anyone watching who feels unseen, unheard, or unsupported, know this: your worth isn't determined by who shows up for you. It's determined by how you show up for yourself, day after day, even when it seems like no one is watching. I took a deep breath for the conclusion. Class of 2025, we've been forged in the challenges of our time. We've proven our resilience, our adaptability, and our determination. As we go forward from this place, let's commit to being the people who show up for ourselves, for each other, and for a world that desperately needs what we have to offer. Thank you. For a moment, silence hung in the air, then applause erupted, starting with Jason and spreading like wildfire. Graduates stood, then parents, then faculty, until the entire assembly was on their feet. Through blurred vision, I saw Professor Hayes wiping his eyes, phone still recording. As I returned to my seat, Dean Dawson squeezed my arm and whispered, "Not quite what I expected, Mr. Mitchell, but perhaps exactly what needed to be said." The ceremony continued around me, but I barely registered the remaining speeches or the conferring of degrees. I had spoken my truth for the first time, and whether it healed old wounds or created new ones remained to be seen. The rest of the ceremony passed in a blur. When my name was called to receive my diploma, the applause seemed louder than for other graduates, or perhaps that was just my heightened awareness after the speech. Several faculty members made a point of shaking my hand with particular warmth, making direct eye contact that communicated their support. As we recessed out of the quad after the ceremony's conclusion, I was stopped repeatedly by classmates and their families. "Your speech was incredible," said Mark Williams' mother, her eyes damp. "It took courage to say those things." Emma's parents found me in the crowd, pulling me into an unexpected group hug. "You always have a place at our table," Emma's father said quietly. "Always." Professor Hayes approached with his phone in hand. "I stopped recording after your speech, but it's all here," he said, holding up the device. "And Ethan, for what it's worth, I've never been prouder of a student in my entire career." We were interrupted by Jason pushing through the crowd. "Dude, you're trending on Twitter! The live stream clip of your speech already has 20,000 views." My stomach dropped. The speech had felt like a personal catharsis, a moment of truth-telling for myself and those present. I hadn't fully considered its digital afterlife. "The university posted it?" I asked, suddenly anxious. "They always post the valedictory address," Jason confirmed, showing me his phone. "And people are sharing it like crazy. Stanford valedictorian calls out absent parents is trending." My phone, which I'd silenced for the ceremony, was vibrating continuously in my pocket. When I finally checked it, I had dozens of missed calls, texts, and notifications. My extended family, aunts, uncles, cousins I rarely heard from, had all watched the live stream and were reaching out. Some messages were supportive, others questioning, a few clearly uncomfortable with my public airing of family dynamics. Most notably, there was nothing from my Jason's family insisted I join them for a celebratory lunch at an upscale restaurant near campus. I accepted gratefully, needing the buffer of their warmth and normalcy. Mrs. Turner made a point of sitting beside me, occasionally patting my hand in a maternal gesture that threatened to undo me. "I hope you know you're welcome at our home anytime," she told me during dessert. "Jason speaks of you like a brother, and that makes you family to us." Throughout lunch, my phone continued to buzz. I tried to ignore it, wanting to be present with the people who had actually shown up, but the weight of what I'd done pressed on me. Had I gone too far? Had my moment of raw honesty burned bridges that couldn't be rebuilt? After lunch, as we stood in the restaurant parking lot saying goodbyes, I finally saw the first message from my immediate family, a text from Madison. "How could you embarrass us like this? Mom is crying and Dad is furious. I'm coming to Stanford. We need to talk. We'll be there in an hour." I showed the message to Jason, who frowned. "Want me to stick around?" I shook my head. I think this is a conversation I need to have alone. Jason's parents insisted on driving me back to my apartment, making me promise to call if I needed anything. As they pulled away, I felt a strange mix of liberation and dread. The truth I'd carried silently for years was now public knowledge, impossible to take back or pretend away. Inside my apartment, I finally looked at social media. Clips of my speech were circulating widely, with comments ranging from deeply supportive to harshly critical. Some praised my honesty and courage, others condemned me for publicly shaming my family. The debate was heated, with people projecting their own family dynamics onto my words. Then my phone rang. Madison. I took a deep breath and answered. "Where are you?" she demanded without preamble, her voice tight with anger. "At my apartment. I'm in the parking lot." "Which building?" "Building C, apartment 304. She hung up without another word. I paced my small living room, rehearsing what I might say, how I might explain the years of accumulated hurt that had led to this moment. But when the sharp knock came at my door, all prepared speeches vanished. Madison stood in the hallway, her face blotchy from crying, eyes blazing with anger. Without waiting for an invitation, she pushed past me into the apartment. "What the hell, Ethan?" she began, turning to face me as I closed the door. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Mom hasn't stopped crying since she saw your speech. Dad is talking about cutting you off completely. Our phones are blowing up with relatives asking if we're abusive parents or something." "That's not what I said," I replied evenly, determined to remain calm. "You humiliated our entire family in front of thousands of people. And for what? Because Mom and Dad couldn't make it to one event?" "One event?" I laughed, the sound hollow. "Madison, they haven't shown up for me my entire life. This was just the final straw." "That's ridiculous. They've always supported you." "Have they? Name one significant event of mine they attended in the last 5 years." I challenged her. "Just one." Madison opened her mouth, then closed it again. Her brow furrowed as she clearly struggled to recall an example. "They're busy people, Ethan. Dad works 60-hour weeks to support this family." "To support you," I corrected. "I've been working since I was 16. I put myself through Stanford with scholarships and 3 jobs." "That was your choice. You're the one who insisted on Stanford when you could have gone to state with a full ride." I shook my head. "This isn't about college choices. This is about a lifetime of being an afterthought. And honestly, Madison, I'm not even angry anymore. I'm just done pretending." Madison's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then back at me. "They're on their way. Dad wants to talk to you." My stomach tightened, but I nodded. "Good. It's about time we had an honest conversation." For the next 20 minutes, Madison and I sat in tense silence. She scrolled through her phone, occasionally sighing or making disapproving noises at what she was reading. I assumed she was seeing the same social media storm I had. Finally, another knock came at the door. The moment of reckoning had arrived. I opened the door to find both my parents standing in the hallway. My father's face was flushed with anger, my mother's eyes red-rimmed from crying. For a moment, we simply stared at each other, the weight of unspoken words filling the space between us. "May we come in?" my father finally asked, his voice tightly controlled. I stepped aside, allowing them to enter my small apartment. Madison immediately went to our mother, putting a protective arm around her shoulders. "What were you thinking?" my father demanded once the door was closed. "Humiliating us in front of everyone like that? Making it sound like we're neglectful parents?" "I was thinking about telling the truth for once," I replied calmly. "Instead of maintaining the fiction that we're one big happy family." "We are a family!" my mother cried. "How could you say such hurtful things?" "Mom, they posted pictures at a spa while claiming they were too tired to attend my graduation," Madison interjected, surprising me. "Even I have to admit that looks bad." My mother turned to her, shock evident on her face. You're taking his side? I'm not taking sides, Madison clarified. But I saw those posts too. The timing was unfortunate. It wasn't about the timing, I said, finding my voice again. It was about the pattern. It's always been about the pattern. What pattern? My father scoffed. We've supported you your entire life. Have you? I challenged. Name one major event in my life you've attended in the past 5 years. One swim meet, one academic competition, one anything. My father opened his mouth, then closed it again, looking to my mother for help. We came to your high school graduation, she offered weakly. That was 6 years ago, I pointed out. And you left halfway through to get to Madison's dance recital. That was an important recital, Madison defended. The dance school director from Juilliard was there. And my high school graduation wasn't important? I asked her directly. For the first time, I saw uncertainty cross her face. My father stepped forward, his business negotiation face firmly in place. Look, Ethan, we understand you're upset. We should have made a greater effort to be at your graduation. That's on us. But to publicly shame us like that? To air family matters for the world to see? That was completely inappropriate. What was inappropriate? I replied, my voice steady. Was telling me you were too tired to drive 2 hours for the most important day of my academic career, then posting pictures of yourselves at a spa with Madison. With hashtags about priorities and family time. My mother winced. I didn't even know they were going to a spa, Madison admitted quietly. They told me it was a surprise day out. Something in her tone made me look at her more closely. The anger that had been radiating from her earlier seemed to have dimmed, replaced by what looked almost like thoughtfulness. We've always been there for both our children. No, Dad, I said firmly. You've always been there for Madison. I've been an afterthought at best. That's not true, my mother protested. Isn't it? I walked to my desk and pulled out a folder. I've kept a calendar for years. Every event, every competition, every achievement. And notes about whether you were there. I handed it to my father. This isn't about one missed graduation. This is about a lifetime of showing me exactly where I stand in this family's hierarchy. My father flipped through the pages, his expression shifting from anger to discomfort. My mother looked over his shoulder, her hand coming up to cover her mouth. I didn't realize, she began. Of course you didn't. You never had to. Madison stepped forward and took the calendar from our father. She studied it for several minutes, her brow furrowed. Ethan, I never saw it like this. I never realized. Why would you? I said without rancor. You were getting what you needed. It's not your fault they chose to prioritize you. But this is, she gestured at the calendar. This is so unbalanced. I counted 5 events they attended for you in 4 years of high school. I can't even count how many of mine they were at. All of them, I supplied. They never missed one. My father ran a hand through his hair, a gesture I recognized from rare moments when a business deal wasn't going his way. You're making it sound like we neglected you. We provided everything you needed: food, shelter, education. Except presents, I said quietly. Except making me feel like I mattered as much as she did. The room fell silent. I thought you didn't need us as much, she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. You were always so independent, so capable. Madison was more demonstrative about needing support. I learned to be independent because I had no choice, I explained. I learned not to need you because needing you led to disappointment. Madison's eyes filled with tears. I never knew. I never saw it. All this time I thought you just preferred being on your own. Something shifted in the room, the defensive energy draining away, replaced by a heavier, sadder recognition. My father cleared his throat. Your speech. It made us sound like terrible parents. That wasn't my intention, I said honestly. I just couldn't stand up there and thank you for support I never received. I couldn't perpetuate the lie anymore. We didn't think of it as lying, my mother said. We thought of it as focusing on the positive. The positive for whom? I asked. Because from where I stood, there wasn't much positive to focus on. Madison wiped her eyes. Ethan, I'm sorry. I never realized. I never saw how uneven things were. Her apology, unexpected and seemingly genuine, caught me off guard. For the first time in our adult lives, she was seeing me, really seeing me, and the unbalanced dynamic that had shaped both our lives. It's not your fault, I told her. You didn't create the situation. But I benefited from it, she acknowledged. And I never questioned why. My father looked between us, then sighed heavily, the anger seeming to deflate from him. I don't know what to say, Ethan. We never intended to make you feel less important. Impact matters more than intention, I replied, echoing words Professor Hayes had once said to me. And the impact was real. My mother stood up shakily. Can we start over somehow? Can we find a way forward from this? I considered her question carefully. The bridges I'd feared burning earlier didn't seem fully destroyed, just illuminated in a harsh new light that made their structural flaws impossible to ignore any longer. I don't know, I answered honestly. But any way forward has to be based on truth, not convenient fictions. I can't pretend anymore. Madison nodded, still holding the calendar. I don't want to pretend either. Not anymore. She looked at our parents. We need to do better. All of us. My father, a man unaccustomed to admitting fault, seemed to age before my eyes. I'm sorry, Ethan. We failed you. I failed you. The words I'd waited years to hear landed with surprising gentleness. Not a magic cure for years of hurt, but perhaps the first brick in a new foundation. Thank you for saying that, I managed, my throat tight with unexpected emotion. We talked for another hour, really talked, perhaps for the first time ever. There were more tears, from all of us. More revelations, more apologies. No magical solutions, but the beginning of honesty. As they prepared to leave, Madison hung back. Can I talk to you alone for a minute? She asked. I nodded, walking her outside while our parents waited in the car. In the apartment complex parking lot, under the warm California sun, my sister looked at me with new eyes. I never saw it, she said again. All these years I never questioned why they were always at my events but never yours. I just accepted it as normal. We all did, I acknowledged. I want to be a better sister, she said, her voice cracking. I want us to have a real relationship, not whatever this unbalanced thing has been. For the first time in years, perhaps ever, I felt like I was seeing the real Madison, not the favored child whose shadow I'd lived in, but a young woman capable of growth and self-reflection. I'd like that, I told her honestly. She hugged me then, fiercely, tears wetting my graduation robe which I still hadn't changed out of. Your speech was brave, she whispered. Uncomfortable as hell for us, but brave. As she walked to the car, wiping her eyes, I realized that sometimes the hardest truths create the possibility for the most meaningful change. 1 week after graduation, we sat around a table at a neutral location, a restaurant halfway between Stanford and my parents' home. The atmosphere was tentative, each of us carefully navigating this new terrain of honesty. My father, ever the businessman, had suggested this meeting. A fresh start, he called it, though we all knew rebuilding would take more than a single dinner. I got the job offer from Kimmel and Associates, I announced after our drinks arrived. They want me to start in August. That's wonderful, Ethan, my mother said, her smile genuine if slightly cautious. San Francisco, right? You'll be close. About an hour away, I confirmed. The salary is good, and they have an excellent mentorship program. I'm looking at apartments in Oakland, Madison added. After everything. I need some space from home too. My parents exchanged glances but didn't object. The events following my graduation speech had prompted reflections for all of us. We've been doing some thinking, my father said, setting down his water glass. About what you said about the patterns. I nodded, waiting. You were right, he continued, the admission clearly difficult for him. We looked back at photos, at calendars. The imbalance was stark once we actually saw it. We never intended, my mother began, then stopped herself. No, that's not helpful. Our intentions don't change what happened. What matters is that you felt unsupported, and that was because of our actions. Her self-correction surprised me. She'd been seeing a therapist since the day after graduation, a step that would have been unthinkable before. I appreciate you acknowledging that, I said carefully. Madison reached across the table and squeezed my hand. Our relationship had shifted dramatically in the past week. She'd called me daily, sometimes just to check in, other times to process her own realizations about our family dynamic. I'm helping Madison move next weekend, I told my parents. Her new place is only 20 minutes from mine. My father nodded. That's good. You two should. It's good you're connecting. His awkwardness was almost endearing, a man who had always dealt uncertainties now navigating the murky waters of emotional repair. Professor Hayes offered me a position as a guest lecturer for his summer course, I mentioned, changing the subject slightly. Just 3 sessions, but it's a nice addition to my resume. He's been a good mentor to you, my mother observed. He has, I agreed. He showed up when I needed someone. The implied comparison hung in the air, acknowledged but not dwelled upon. Your speech has over 1 million views now, Madison said. The comments are intense. After going viral, my valedictory address had sparked heated debates about family dynamics, obligations, and the nature of support. I'd received hundreds of messages from people sharing similar experiences, thanking me for giving voice to their feelings. I've been offered a book deal, I admitted, something I hadn't told anyone yet. About resilience and success despite obstacles. They want me to expand on themes from the speech. My father's eyebrows shot up. That's significant. I haven't decided if I'll accept. It would mean being very public about our family. You should do it, Madison said firmly. Your story could help a lot of people. My parents didn't immediately object, which itself represented growth. Whatever you decide, we'll support it, my mother said after a moment. We have a lot to make up for. I don't want your guilt, I told them honestly. That's not sustainable. What I want is change moving forward. Real change. My father nodded solemnly. We're committed to that. All of us. As dinner progressed, the conversation became more natural. Not perfect, not without awkward moments or old patterns briefly resurfacing, but genuine in a way our family interactions had rarely been. After dessert, Madison showed us photos of her new apartment building. It needs work, she admitted, but the location is perfect. I can help with painting, I offered. Jason's pretty handy with minor repairs too. I'd like to meet your friends, my mother said tentatively. The people who've been there for you. Jason and Professor Hayes. We should thank them. The suggestion touched me unexpectedly. As we walked to the parking lot after dinner, Madison linked her arm through mine. I never had a real relationship with you, she said quietly. I never really knew my own brother. I want that to change. The following weekend, I helped Madison. I found these yesterday, she said, pulling out a shoebox. Inside were childhood photos, many I'd never seen of us together, as small children. Mom had them in the attic, she explained. Look at us. We were actually close once. The evidence of an earlier, uncomplicated connection brought a lump to my throat. We can be again, I told her. Different, but maybe better because we're choosing it now. The viral nature of my speech had unexpected professional consequences. Beyond the book offer, several organizations had reached out about speaking engagements focusing on resilience, educational equity, and family dynamics. My new employers at Kimmel and Associates were surprisingly supportive, seeing the publicity as an asset rather than a liability. "Your story resonates with people," my new supervisor explained. "It shows character and authenticity, qualities our clients value." Professor Hayes and I maintained our weekly coffee meetings, now as colleagues rather than mentor and student. He'd become family in the truest sense of the word chosen, reliable, supportive without condition. "Are you healing?" he asked me one afternoon, about a month after graduation. I considered the question carefully. "I think so. Not in a straight line, but overall. Yes." "And your family?" "We're trying," I said. "All of us. It's awkward and imperfect, but it's honest for the first time." He nodded, understanding. "The truth doesn't guarantee a happy ending, but it does create the possibility for an authentic one." That evening, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment, watching the San Francisco sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. My phone buzzed with a text from Madison. "Family dinner Sunday? My treat this time." I smiled and typed back, "I'll be there." The journey ahead would not be simple or straightforward. Real healing rarely is. But standing in my truth had created space for something I'd never fully experienced before, the possibility of being seen, known, and valued for exactly who I am. To those watching this video, I'd like to ask, have you ever had to stand in your truth even when it was difficult? How did it change your relationships? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more real stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and resilience. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the hardest conversations lead to the most necessary healing. Your story matters, and your truth deserves to be heard.